flipping through the newspapers, switching through multiple news channels, exploring different websites and online mediums for relevant news. Keeping up to date with important news is not only time-consuming but also requires meticulous upkeep of notes for thorough revision. With a limited period in hand and abundant resources to study from, do not let current affairs come in the way of your prelims success. Join the PT 365 program by Vision IAS and advance in your preparation for current affairs. Starting on 9th January at 5 p.m., this 20-day course offers comprehensive coverage of 1 year of current affairs in 60 hours. Join for improved knowledge with complete coverage of The Hindu, Indian Express, PIB, Economic Times, Yojana, Economic Survey, etc. Doubt-clearing sessions and mentoring for thorough knowledge. Access to Sandhan personalized test with 25,000 plus questions. Access to live and online classes for flexibility in timing. It's time to devote your energy to smart learning and not running. Enroll today and excel in UPSC prelims with a strong command of current affairs.
Hello and welcome to this edition of News Today. Without delay, let's have a look at the headlines first. India dispatches humanitarian aid to Myanmar under Operation Brahma after 7.7 magnitude earthquake. Judges must protect freedom of speech even if they don't like what was said, says Supreme Court. Union Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways introduced Indian Ports Bill 2025 in Lok Sabha. Cabinet approves electronics component manufacturing scheme with funding of 22,919 crore rupees. Over 1,000 species of fungi threatened with extinction, says IUCN. In our first news for the day, we look at a major humanitarian effort following a devastating earthquake in Myanmar. India has dispatched critical humanitarian aid under Operation Brahma after a powerful 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck Myanmar. The tremor, recorded at a depth of just 10 kilometers, was the strongest in 2 years. Due to its shallow depth, the shock waves intensified as they traveled from the focus, the earthquake's origin point, beneath the surface to the ground. The epicenter, or the ground surface directly above the focus of the quake, was located approximately 17 kilometers from Mandalay, Myanmar's second largest city. Moving on to what caused this massive earthquake, the Myanmar earthquake resulted from what is known as strike-slip faulting along the Sagaing Fault, which lies at the boundary of the Indian and Eurasian plates. The Sagaing Fault runs from north to south through Myanmar, forming the boundary between the Indian and Eurasian plates. It is one of the longest and most active strike-slip faults globally, spanning 1,500 kilometers. The Indian plate is moving northward relative to the Eurasian plate, building stress along the fault line and triggering earthquakes. Now, let's take a closer look at faults and their role in earthquakes. A fault is a fracture in the Earth's crust where rocks move relative to each other due to tectonic stress. The movement along these fault planes releases accumulated strain, leading to seismic activity. There are different types of faults, each with distinct characteristics. First, we have normal faults, where the hanging wall moves downward relative to the footwall. These faults are common at divergent boundaries such as the East African Rift Valley and the Basin. Next, reverse faults occur at convergent boundaries due to compression, causing the hanging wall to move upward. Notable examples include the Rocky Mountains and the Himalayas. In contrast, strike-slip faults exhibit horizontal movement with minimal vertical displacement, similar to the Anatolian Fault in Turkey. Lastly, transform faults are a type of strike-slip fault that form boundaries between tectonic plates, with the San Andreas Fault in California being a well-known example. As Myanmar deals with the aftermath of this devastating event, India's swift humanitarian response under Operation Brahma reaffirms its commitment to regional support and disaster relief. Now, we bring you a significant ruling from the Supreme Court on the protection of free speech. The The Supreme Court has reaffirmed that judges must protect freedom of speech even if they don't like what was said. This judgment came in the case of Imran Pratapgarhi versus State of Gujarat, underscoring the authorities' duty to uphold constitutional rights of freedom of speech and expression, even in cases involving unpopular opinions. The verdict was in response to an FIR filed against Rajya Sabha MP Imran Pratapgarhi, alleging that his speech incited enmity between communities under Section 153A of the Indian Penal Code or IPC. The court, however, clarified that Section 153A applies only when there is a deliberate intent to promote hatred between communities. Additionally, under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023, Section 196 penalizes actions or speech that incite hatred or disharmony between different groups based on religion, race, language, or region, aiming to maintain public peace and order. Now, let's take a look at the constitutional provisions related to freedom of speech. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A of the Indian Constitution guarantees every citizen the right to freedom of speech and expression. This includes the right to express opinions and ideas freely, receive and impart information, freedom of the press, and the right to criticize the government and public figures. However, reasonable restrictions under Article 19, Clause 2 can be imposed on grounds of sovereignty and integrity of India, the security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency or morality, or in relation to contempt of court, defamation, or incitement to an offense. The Supreme Court's ruling aligns with several important judicial precedents. In K.A. Abbas v. Union of India, 1970, the court held that a film's impact must be assessed as a whole on ordinary viewers. In Shreya Singhal v. Union of India, 2015, it reaffirmed that freedom of thought and expression is fundamental in democracy. More recently, in Manzar Saeed Khan and Patricia Mukhim v. State of Meghalaya 2021, the court emphasized that intent or mens rea is crucial in cases under Section 153A IPC. With this ruling, the Supreme Court has once again strengthened the democratic values enshrined in our Constitution, ensuring that freedom of speech remains a cornerstone of our society. Moving on, a significant legislative move was made in the Lok Sabha as the Union Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways introduced the Indian Ports Bill 2025. This bill is set to replace the Indian Ports Act of 1908, a law that has been in place since the colonial era but is now considered outdated. The primary objectives of the Indian Ports Bill 2025 include streamlining laws related to ports in India, promoting integrated port development, and ensuring optimal utilization of the country's extensive coastline. Now, let's go over some key provisions and features of the bill. To begin with, the bill has broad applicability. It covers both existing and new ports, navigable rivers, vessels within port limits, and even aircraft using port waters. A major highlight of the bill is the establishment of the Maritime State Development Council or MSDC by the central government. This council will be chaired by none other than the Union Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. Moving ahead, the bill also provides for the formation of state maritime boards or SMBs by the respective state governments. These boards will be responsible for effectively managing ports that do not fall under the major ports category within their jurisdiction. Notably, the SMBs will inherit all debts, contracts, and obligations related to port operations. The port governance structure, which constitutes of two key entities, the Maritime State Development Council and the State Maritime Boards. The Maritime State Development Council is responsible for recommending legal and policy improvements, promoting port competition, advising on national port development, and issuing data management guidelines. On the other hand, the state maritime boards oversee port operations by exercising supervision of port works, developing port infrastructure, regulating navigation and tariffs, and ensuring environmental compliance. These two entities work together to ensure the smooth functioning and strategic growth of India's port sector. Now, what happens in case of disputes? To address this, the bill mandates the establishment of a dispute resolution committee at the state level. This committee will handle port-related disputes and, importantly, civil courts will not have jurisdiction over cases that fall under the purview of the DRC. The bill also emphasizes the appointment of key port officers. These include conservators and health officers who will oversee port operations, enforce laws, ensure safety, and manage health-related concerns at the ports. On the environmental front, the legislation lays down strict provisions for safety and pollution control. Ports will be required to provide facilities for vessel waste disposal in accordance with international conventions such as MARPOL 1973 and the Ballast Water Management Convention of 2004. And finally, the central government will have the authority to designate major and non-major ports as mega ports based on specific criteria. The Indian Ports Bill 2025 aims to bring a modernized and efficient framework for port operations across the country. It is now up to the legislative process to determine the fate of this important piece of legislation. In a major boost to domestic manufacturing, the Cabinet has approved the Electronics Component Manufacturing Scheme with a funding of 22,919 crore rupees. The scheme is aimed at developing a robust component ecosystem, enhancing domestic value addition, and integrating Indian companies with global value chains. So, what does the scheme offer? Let's take a closer look at its salient features. The scheme will provide differentiated incentives to Indian manufacturers tailored to overcome specific challenges for various categories of components. The targeted segments include sub-assemblies such as display and camera modules, as well as bare components like non-surface mount devices. Now, talking about the tenure, the scheme will be implemented over 6 years, including a 1-year gestation period. A unique aspect of this initiative is that a part of the incentive payout is linked to achieving employment targets, ensuring job creation alongside industrial growth. Now, why is the electronics sector so crucial? From a strategic standpoint, national security is a major consideration. Under the India-US Joint Cooperation, India's first ever national security semiconductor fabrication plant will be established to produce chips for military hardware, marking a significant step towards self-reliance in defense technology. Another critical factor is supply chain resilience. Over half of India's electronics imports, amounting to $89.8 billion in FY23, came from China and Hong Kong, highlighting the need for diversification and building domestic manufacturing capabilities. From an economic perspective, the electronics sector has been witnessing rapid growth. Export figures have surged from 0.38 lakh crore rupees in FY 14-15 to 2.41 lakh crore rupees in FY 23-24. Reflecting a compound annual growth rate or CAGR of more than 20%. Similarly, domestic production has grown from 1.9 lakh crore rupees in FY 14-15 to 9.52 lakh crore rupees in FY 23-24, registering a CAGR of over 17%. With such ambitious targets and robust initiatives, the Electronics Component Manufacturing Scheme is expected to propel India's position as a global manufacturing hub. Next, we bring you a crucial update from the world of biodiversity. A recent press release by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, has revealed alarming data. Over 1,000 species of fungi are now threatened with extinction. The rapid expansion of agricultural and urban areas is replacing natural fungal habitats, placing 279 species at risk. Let's take a closer look at the key findings of the report. The list of fungi species under threat has now reached 1,300, with at least 411 species facing risk of extinction. Climate change has also played a major role, especially in the United States, where changing fire patterns have put over 50 species at risk. A prime example is the Sierra Nevada forest, where fir trees now dominate the landscape, altering ecosystems. Pollution is another concern. Ammonia runoff from fertilizers has endangered 91 species. Furthermore, habitat loss remains a pressing issue, with urban expansion and deforestation threatening 279 species. But why are fungi so important? Let's understand their significance. Fungi are eukaryotic organisms meaning their cells contain membrane-bound organelles and clearly defined nuclei. Historically, they were classified under the plant kingdom, but they differ significantly from plants. Unlike plants, fungi lack chlorophyll. Their cell walls contain chitin instead of cellulose, and they absorb nutrients externally by breaking down organic matter, while plants make their own food. Fungi also play a vital role in mutualistic relationships. Lichens, for example, are composite organisms made up of a fungus and either a single-celled algae or cyanobacterium. Ecologically, fungi act as decomposers, breaking down organic matter, recycling nutrients, and form symbiotic relationships with plants. Interestingly, researchers in Germany have even identified fungi capable of degrading synthetic plastics, presenting potential solutions for tackling environmental pollution. Beyond their ecological roles, fungi have extensive benefits in various industries. They are essential in food production, being used in fermentation and baking. In medicine, they are used for drug production. Some species contain chemicals that are extracted and used to produce drugs known as stains, which control cholesterol levels. With the growing threat to fungal biodiversity, conservation efforts are more critical than ever. Protecting these vital organisms is not just about saving species, it's about maintaining the delicate balance of our ecosystems. In today's Place in News, we focus on South Korea with its capital, Seoul. Currently, the country is battling its worst ever wildfires. Let's now look at some key facts about the country. Located in East Asia, South Korea shares its northern border with Democratic People's Republic of Korea or North Korea, the East Sea or Sea of Japan to the east, the Yellow Sea to the west, and the East China Sea to the south. North and South Korea are divided along the 38th parallel, a demilitarized zone. Geographically, the country is dominated by the Taebaek mountain range along its eastern coast, with Mount Halla, an extant volcano on Jeju Island, standing as its highest peak at 1,950 meters. Jeju Island, situated in the Korea Strait, is also the largest in the region. Major rivers include the Han River and Nakdong River, which play a crucial role in South Korea's water system. As we conclude today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. Lok Sabha passed Carriage of Goods by Sea Bill 2024 to simplify the language of the provision for the ease of understanding. The bill replaced the Indian Carriage of Goods by Sea Act 1925. It establishes the responsibilities, liabilities, and rights in case of goods carried from a port in India to another port in India or any other port in the world. Indian bond yields dropped sharply in FY25 amid foreign inflows and policy shifts. A bond is a loan made by an investor to a borrower for a set period of time in return for regular interest payments. A bond is a contract between the borrower, the issuer, and the lender, the investor. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved the 4-lane access-controlled Patna-Ara-Sasaram corridor under the hybrid annuity model, which is a public-private partnership model, used in infrastructure projects, primarily in road construction. 40% project cost is funded by government during construction. 14th edition of exercise Indra is taking place in Chennai from March 28, 2025 to April 2, 2025. It is a bilateral naval exercise between India and Russia taking place since 2003. The exercise will be conducted in 2 phases, harbour phase at Chennai and sea phase in Bay of Bengal. Recently, Indian Army has successfully tested a first-person view drone developed indigenously by Major Cephas Chetan in collaboration with Chandigarh-based Terminal Ballistics Research Laboratory. Key features include precision strike capability. The drone can target enemy bunkers, vehicles, and smaller systems effectively. Bangladesh welcomes participation of China in Teesta River Comprehensive Management and Restoration Project. If we talk of the Teesta Treaty, in 2011, a draft agreement was proposed where India would get 42.5% and Bangladesh 37.5% of Teesta's water during the dry season. Government of India is supporting photonic chip research for next-gen computing. A photonic chip is similar to an electronic chip but uses light instead of electricity. Instead of resistors and transistors, PICs have optical components like waveguides, lasers, and polarizers. Union government has announced the establishment of second National Gene Bank to conserve 10 lakh crop germplasm, ensuring future food and nutritional security. The first NGB was established in 1996 at the ICAR, National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources in New Delhi. Other gene banks in India include Animal Gene Bank and Microbial Gene Bank. Before we sign off, let's challenge your understanding in today's installment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this episode of News Today engaging. For the solutions to the quiz and to access the PDF version of News Today, remember to visit the provided links in the description.